So TektonTV has some more insults he'd like to pass off as arguments. If you'd like to hear those, here you go.
The main argument that comes out of the pool of sewer waste he produced is an idiocy where he tells us the same stupid thing he told us last time. That is, they don't look that way. It's a point he repeats 500 different ways, even as it never gets any better. It just doesn't get through these fundy atheist skulls that what it looks like, or sounds like, or resembles to them, and to their ignorant, uneducated minds, is not a measure of anything except their own uneducated ignorance. As a result, we have this sort of racist and bigoted ignorance that follows. No, messianic moron, there was nothing wrong with the Bible's communication skills. The problem is on your end, and with the fact that you fail miserably to understand the genre, method, and purpose of ancient law codes.
Why wouldn't a perfect document created by a perfect, all-powerful, all-loving God be perfectly clear to everyone rather than just to the people with knowledge of ancient Hebrew law codes? Did Yahweh intend the Bible as a message for everyone, or only for people who knew enough about the legal system of ancient Judea to be able to interpret it the way people of that time did?
Given all that, if the messianic moron had any brains at all, he'd read works by credentialed scholars of the ancient Near East and make some effort to understand the text of another culture and time on their own terms. This slide he slapped together tells the story well enough of why he won't be picking up any serious literature on the subject anytime soon. He actually thinks his lack of being convinced should impress us, as if it's no more than further testimony to his own inability, stupidity, ignorance, and lack of intellectual curiosity.
Let's assume everything you say about me is true. Let's say I'm just lazy and ignorant. Why wouldn't an omnipotent, omnibenevolent God make his message so clear that its meaning is obvious to even the lazy and ignorant?
Well, I'll say it slowly again so he'll get it. Messianic moron, you are a YouTube loudmouth nobody with no credentials.
First of all, you don't know what credentials I do or don't have. More importantly, was the Bible written to only be understood by people with credentials? Should everyone without credentials always refrain from expressing skepticism toward those who have them? This looks like one big argument from authority here.
Eventually, the drool starts flying and we get this idiotic question, which I already answered. How can you tell? You do what scholars do. You study ancient law codes and how they were used. You study ancient language and how it was used. We know from repeated examples, from repeated experience, and from both ancient and modern cultural studies that this is how law codes were used, and this was how the language was used.
Okay, simply saying we studied it is not an answer. My question was intended to discover how the researchers came to their conclusions specifically. Show me the data and how the scholars' conclusions follow from the data. Simply saying go look it up is a common evasion tactic used by trolls.
This is the finding and consensus of multiple scholars. Sitting there behind your screen and burping, how do you know, isn't an answer.
It's not intended to be an answer. It's a question intended to find information.
It's a sign that you don't have an answer.
I know I don't have an answer. An answer is what I'm trying to get from you.
And are gyrating helplessly in what the scholar N.T. Wright would call the folly of trying to fit the hurricane of 14th century BC legal, linguistic, and literary concepts into the bottle of late modern Western categories.
Why would a perfect, all-powerful, all-loving God make his message so unclear to uneducated late modern Western people?
It's no shock that instead of accepting his responsibility, he blames God for not being clear. Well, guess what? That alleged obligation on God is your own invention. It's not reasonable at all. You're just being a crybaby. The meaning of the text was perfectly obvious to the audience it was written to.
So the parts of the Bible in question weren't written to everyone? If that's the case, what was the point of including it in the canon? Lots of fundies have interpreted the Old Testament laws literally and have done a lot of harm as a result. This is harm that could have been prevented if those passages were simply relegated to the Apocrypha, or if they had simply been written literally instead of exhortationally. Why wouldn't the perfect, infallible, holy word of Yahweh be perfectly clear to every audience? Why would it not be perfectly reasonable to expect a perfect author to reach such a standard?
It was also painfully obvious to generations thereafter who lived under the same supposition that law codes served a didactic purpose. And it doesn't take any real effort to gain the same understanding today.
I'm sure taking Hillers at his word doesn't take any real effort, but critically engaging any author, which is necessary to come to any genuine understanding of the scholar's point, always takes real effort.
All you have to do is do a little reading in a book like Hillers. Is that too much to ask?
Yes, it seems like far too much for a supposedly perfect, all-powerful author to ask. Why would such an author need Hillers to provide a supplementary explanation when that author, being all-powerful, could have made himself perfectly clear in the original text?
Maybe there's too many big words in that book for you? Maybe you're too busy watching TV or plinking on that plastic piano of yours? Or too busy whipping it out of your pants to be bothered to spend the necessary time to do study? Making matters worse, he doesn't even know what the fallacy of appeal to authority is. No, it's not a fallacy to refer to real experts.
I didn't say it was a fallacy to refer to experts. It's a fallacy to say that a consensus of scholars means that a topic is not up for debate. I don't see why I should take scholars at their word if they really are saying something as self-contradictory as the Bible was written by an all-powerful, all-loving God, perfectly capable of making its meaning obvious to everyone, but its meaning is actually only obvious to ancient Judeans and those who have studied the culture of ancient Judea. How do you reconcile those two things? To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.